That's the leader. Yeah. Jason Silva.
Hi.
Very welcome on our show. We're very glad to have you.
Thank you.
I know you, but a lot of Dutch people might not know you. Who are you and what do you do in daily life?
So I am the presenter of a TV show on National Geographic Channel called Brain Games,
Yep.
which is about the perceptions and misperceptions that we have about reality. So it makes neuroscience fun and accessible. And then I also have a digital series called Shots of Awe, which are these 3-minute films that I make and distribute online that are about digital culture, transformation, disruption, creativity, innovation, but with a distinct philosophical bent. So I'm trying to make people engage with the greatest ideas of our time in profound philosophical ways.
Okay,
that's my aspiration.
Okay, I hear a lot of buzzwords.
I'm good with the buzzwords.
I wrote down a lot of buzzwords.
Good.
Exploring creativity, innovation, exponential technology,
Yes.
futurism, metaphysics,
Woohoo!
existentialism, the human condition.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's hard to put a label on you. Which label do you prefer?
Media artist.
Media artist.
Yeah, like I use media to make art. Visual, you know, it's like my videos are more like mashups, which is more like a Jackson Pollock painting. Instead of brush strokes, it's interconnected ideas. So I think of my films as visual mind maps.
Yeah.
So you're getting a non-scripted stream of consciousness in which I connect the dots related to an idea that I have found interesting and try to distill it for you in real time.
Yeah, and especially your...
It's like philosophical rap.
Yeah, your Awe series is very popular,
Yeah.
especially amongst young people.
Very much so.
Why is that? How do you explain that it attracts so much attention?
Yeah, well, I think...
because it's not easy accessible.
No, it's not. But I think it's you're sort of competing with a sort of increasingly fragmented attention span, where attention is the new limited resource, and people are consuming more and more content on smartphones, and that content on smartphones is being interrupted by tweets and Facebook updates and phone calls and SMS messages. And so it's hard to get somebody's attention for a 30-minute documentary or even an hour-long film unless they're in the movie theater. And given that I'm not making motion pictures in the movie theater, if I'm interested in reaching people digitally through their devices, you can't really go more than 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, so
people won't watch it.
So your shots of Awe are 2 minutes, 2.5?
Yes, they're a reflection of the constraints of the medium.
Okay, I've got one of them ready. Maybe we can have a look at it, and our audience as well, so they know what we're talking about.
Fantastic.
So I think a lot about the contrast between banality and wonder, between disengagement and radiant ecstasy, between being unaffected by the here and now and being absolutely ravished emotionally by it. And I think one of the problems for human beings is mental habits. Once we create a comfort zone, we rarely step outside of that comfort zone. But the consequence of that is a phenomenon known as hedonic adaptation. Overstimulation to the same kind of thing, the same stimuli again and again and again, renders said stimuli invisible. Your brain has already mapped it in its own head, and you no longer literally have to be engaged by that. We have eyes yet see not, ears that hear not, and hearts that neither feel nor understand. There's a great book called The Wondering Brain that says that one of the ways that we elicit wonder is by scrambling the self temporarily so that the world can seep in. You know, Henry Miller says even a blade of grass, when given proper attention, becomes an infinitely magnificent world in itself, you know. Darwin said attention, if sudden and close, graduates into surprise, and this into astonishment, and this into stupefied amazement. That's what rapture is. That's what illumination is. That's what that sort of infinite comprehending awe that human beings love so much. And so how do we do that? How do we mess with our perceptual apparatus in order to have the kind of emotional and aesthetic experience from life that we render most meaningful? Because we all know those moments are there. Those are the moments that would make final cut. Only in these moments we experience afresh the hardly bearable ecstasy of direct energy exploding on our nerve endings. This is the rhapsodic, ecstatic ecstatic bursting forth of awe that expands our perceptual parameters beyond all previous limits, and we literally have to reconfigure our mental models of the world in order to assimilate the beauty of that download. That is what it means to be inspired. The Greek root of the term means to breathe in, to take it in. We fit the universe through our brains and it comes out in the form of nothing less than poetry. We have a responsibility to awe.
You say there's no script for those videos, you improvise them?
They are improvised. I mean, like I said, there's a mind mapping quality to them. And a mind map is when you take a concept or a phrase or an idea, and then you draw a line and you connect it to this other idea that might be connected to it in some way that you have found. But then there might be a line from the second idea that's not connected to the first one, but then there might be a third idea that is connected to both, and so on and so forth. And so usually I'll collect in my own note-taking, I'll be reading about the art of awe, or I'll be thinking about ecstatic experiences and creativity, and then I'll be reading another book and it'll talk about how whenever we are decentered by something we've never seen before, it gives us this feeling of awe, and then I'll think to myself, oh, that's connected to that other thing I was reading about.
So you're trying to make new combinations of thoughts.
That's exactly
and
what it
cut
is.
the lines where they connect. And
yes, and Stephen Johnson in his book Where Good Ideas Come From, which is about the history of innovation, talks about something that Englishmen used to do in the 18th or 19th century. It's called the Commonplace Book. And the Commonplace Book was essentially like a special journal of notes, where people, men of intellect, would write down phrases, quotes, ideas. They would transcribe passages from books that they were reading, and it would create this sort of paper trail of their thinking.
That's actually still what a lot of writers do. Write down their thoughts every day in a small book.
But also like little references and observations they make from all these places. And then every time you go back to your notes, you interpret it differently. You retrace your steps and you find new combinations. I do that out loud.
What is the core idea you want to communicate through those videos? I mean, you are a communicator.
So each video obviously has a title. And so in each instance, what I want you to do is I want you to see an idea from enough of a distance that you can really notice it. Because a lot of the times what's right in front of our faces we take for granted. You were talking about, bike culture here in the Netherlands. For most of you guys, you just take it for granted. It is what it is. I'm running around telling people I cannot believe how amazing the bike culture is. Oh my God, everybody goes on the canal, they put their little children on the basket. It's the most amazing social experiment of transportation I've ever seen in my life. And the Dutch look at me like I'm crazy. Because you were so close to it that you no longer can see how impressive it is as compared to what other cities are struggling with, urban chaos and bottlenecking and subways and traffic. So sometimes you need to distance yourself to see the big picture.
That's taking distance. Leaving your comfort zone is also very important, I think.
Distance is required for appreciation. When you go to a museum, you marvel at ordinary objects because they're hung on a wall and decontextualized. They're taken out of their element so you can see them as if for the first time. So I'm trying to use visual videos to create an aesthetic and intellectual distance from everyday concepts so that we can see them as if for the first time.
Okay, you're one of the new generation media makers. I mean, you also work for the traditional media, National Geographic. They have a very difficult time at the moment. Why do they struggle, connecting to the young generation? What is the problem?
Well, I think that something that seems like a big change to somebody from an older generation, young people might be born into that new world, and so for them it's not so drastic. So the old guard might think, but you're supposed to watch programs on the television, it's in the living room, and how can you possibly watch something on a small iPhone? It's so small. But for the young kid that has an iPhone from a very young age and is playing with the iPhone instead of watching TV after school, that's all he knows. So in other words, he doesn't have a reference, oh, this is small or large. It is simply what they do and what they use. And so if we're interested in being relevant to that new guard, to the new audiences, we have to go to where they're comfortable. We can't expect to teach them
then what
to
you
do
say,
things the way we used to do things.
But then what you are saying is that making programs, content for the small screen, for the smartphone, is a different skill than making the traditional TV program.
Yes,
but
and
can you...
In the same way, look, when the technology of film was first invented, it took us a couple of decades to figure out, okay, about 90 minutes to 120 minutes is the tolerance level for sitting in a theater. Yeah. This is how, and you figure out the craft, the spacing between the edits and the cuts. All this was modified over time to help mediate attention, because we're basically just steering attention. That's what content does. It colonizes the imagination for a period of time. And I think the tolerance levels, the engagement rates, the attention spans are all different depending on the interface. A movie theater is different than a living room is different than an iPhone.
Is only the interface, or has the human brain changed as well over the last?
The human brain has always been very, very, very plastic in its capacity to incorporate tools into its cognitive arsenal. Like when we watch a movie, we become the movie. We forget that we even exist. We take on the role of those characters. We live vicariously through them. There's no such thing as virtual reality. It's really the reality of the virtual. The dream is real when you're in it. Yeah, but so the brain has no problem adapting itself.
But do you believe the attention span of people has really changed, or does it depend on the kind of content?
I don't know if the attention span has physically changed. I mean, look, you can get used to anything, but I think it's the interface that determines the attention span.
Right.
I think you can pay more attention when you're in a dark theater watching an IMAX for a longer period of time than something on your iPhone. But your iPhone, they'll grab you for 3 minutes.
Okay, we know you from the National Geographic show, Brain Games. We know you from the video type of videos we just watched. What is next for you? I mean, you're innovating all the time and reinventing yourself. What can we expect from you?
Yeah, well, that's the existentialist question I ask myself every day. I think that the shots of awe style short videos will continue as just in the background, because I'm always excited to make the short form content, and it's a relatively fast turnover rate. They don't take that long to edit. So that I'll keep doing. The question is, what will come after Brain Games? What's my next big project, and will that project be with traditional media, alternative media, branded content? It would be very nice to find a brand partner that would maybe be the sort of digital benefactor in much the same way that athletes get sponsors. When Red Bull sponsors an athlete, it's kind of across the board. What's the equivalent of that for a digital artist? What's the brand that facilitates me just hiring a staff and making my art?
That's in the traditional media also very controversial. Eh? They always say, well, if you connect yourself to a brand, you lose your independence. For you, that's a different story.
I think Vice, the brand Vice, did a very good job when they made all these deals with Intel. And I think they were very clear with Intel for many years, we're just going to be ourselves. If you want to attach your name because you think our audience is hip, attach your name, but we're still going to be Vice. And I think I'm still going to be Jason Silva, no matter what brand I end up working with. Hopefully the right brand understands that and is like, what does Jason Silva stand for? Imagination, innovation, out-of-the-box thinking, question everything, philosophy. We like those values. We're going to sponsor what you do across the board. It'd be great. It'd be great to hire a staff of my closest collaborators and be able to move to Amsterdam and have our studio here and edit everything and just do that.
You love Amsterdam.
I love Amsterdam.
You stay for another 2 weeks, I heard. What is special about this place that people don't realize if you live here?
The interface with which you experience the city. So in Los Angeles, you experience it through the interface of the car. So your relationship with distance, your relationship with close and far and locate is all mediated by the car. You get rid of the car, the city transforms into a space where you're stuck in your house or you're stuck wherever you took a car to. And unless your house is gorgeous, that's pretty stifling. New York is a cool town, but it's priced out most people. And the subway is an embarrassment in many ways. It's just like, why? In the most richest city in the world like this, do we have a transportation system that's so old? And I hate driving in New York. You can walk, but not if you're going from uptown to downtown. So I've never been to a city that has everything a city needs with the vibe of a village, with a modality of transport that is so egalitarian, charismatic, and healthy. So that's the wallpaper. You add to that the open-mindedness of the Dutch, the legalized or at least tolerated cannabis, and you have the recipe for a creative society. Okay,
enough compliments. You're very good in the buzzwords. We already talked about that. One of the buzzwords I also found was technological singularity. That's also becoming more and more popular in the Netherlands. What is the attraction to the singularity,
well, the singularity
in your work?
The singularity is a great buzzword, but ultimately it's a metaphor. And it's a metaphor that's borrowed from a physics term to describe a black hole singularity. So when you go through a black hole, we don't know if the laws of physics still apply, or they kind of collapse in on themselves. So it's analogous to that. What's happening in technology is almost like what going through a black hole might be like, in the sense that it's getting impossible for us to make predictions about what that world looks like when AI, biotech, and nanotech really kind of flourish.
Yep.
What happens when we get rid of aging? What happens when we live all our lives in virtual environments? What happens when nanotechnology turns the entire physical world into something that's programmable like computer software? Like when the physical world is like as manipulatable as computer software, we really have become gods. So humans as a geological force, humans as evolution incarnate, starts to take on a big weight.
The attraction for you is that it forces people to get or to go out of their comfort zone and think on a different level about the future.
Yeah, the attraction for me is that we're going to move into the realm of the imagination. That we are going to leave behind the weight and the gravity of bodies and entropy, and we're going to live in the realm of mind, which is where we feel the most comfortable anyway. Human beings,
probably true.
We live in the realm. I mean, it's annoying when we have to like go to the bathroom and like feed ourselves. I mean, food tastes good, but it's annoying to be full and metabolize and digest. Like, we want to live in the realm of mind. We want to live in the realm of imagination, and that's, I think, our destiny.
You're speaking later today?
I think I already spoke now. I was the opening keynote, but I'll be again at the digital dinner tonight.
What was the subject of your talk?
Everything we talked about now.
Everything? No,
everything.
Not a special focus?
Technology, the future of creativity.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, man.
And enjoy Amsterdam.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Awesome. That was fun. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.